Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, feel free to get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Send me questions, feedback. If you want me to model something in the future that I haven't modeled yet, please send me an email. I'd love to do that. Today we're going to focus on related content. You know, those are the pieces of content you find at the bottom of a blog article, or perhaps when you're watching a video, it says related video or related podcast you may be interested in listening to, those kinds of things. There are two ways to add that kind of content to a piece of content, right? One is a static way. In other words, you tell it exactly, hey, for this blog entry, I want to show all of these other related blog entries. That way you have, or your authors have, control over that. The other way to do it is to do it more automatic, more dynamic, and to be rules-based. So we can say, for example, for this article, show anything that's written by Marcelo Lewin for this kind of audience, or show anything that is tagged with this tag, for example. So I'm going to show you how to do both into the content model, how to create that content model to do both. But as always, you know how this works out. I'm going to tell you real quick. Oh, look at that. I jumped the gun. No, I'm going to tell you real quick about headlesscreator.com. Make sure you signed up. For those of you watching live right now, thank you so much for watching live. But sign up, get your free account. This version or this lesson will be on demand immediately after I'm done. But to watch it, you have to be a user. It's 100% free. So just register at headlesscreator.com. You'll have access to not only this lesson, but all of the lessons in the content modeling course, which you can see. This is lesson 39 today, but we've got many more coming every week, basically. So you'll keep getting them constantly. And then at the bottom, you'll find the models in Miro. You'll have access to those as well as part of registering. So make sure you register. Then, of course, you'll have access to everything else. Lots of Headless CMS courses, many more coming up. Discover Headless Text. I've got great interviews. I've got lots of lessons in there. So go ahead and register, and that is it. No more marketing for you. I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and get back to this. What I'm going to do now is for the on-demand version, you know how it works out. I restart the intro because there's absolutely no marketing. In fact, I'm going to show you that I switched, well, you don't see the screen yet, but I switched screens already. There is no marketing at all. We'll restart the intro, and then we'll jump into the lesson. So I will see you in just about 10 seconds. Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Content Modeling Weekly course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Send me an email, questions, feedback, comments. If you want me to model something that I haven't modeled yet, please send me your request and I'll put it into the queue. All right, today we're going to jump in and we're going to create a content model to allow you or to allow your author to create, to add related content to, for example, a blog entry. And there are two types that I consider. I consider dynamic and static. Static means the author will go in and actually choose the exact blog entry that they want to relate to the current entry. The dynamic one is more based on rules. So for example, for this blog article, can you show anything that is tagged with this kind of tag that is written by this author? Or perhaps show any articles that are related to this audience. So I'm going to show you how to do both into one content model that becomes scalable and you can add more rules. So let's jump in. Let's go ahead and get the screen here. So there we go. Here we are, and I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee here. And that's because it's very early here in the morning in Southern California. Alrighty, so here we are. So let's start by modeling. We're going to have a blog. So for the blog, we're just going to have a blog, and it's going to have a title, a body. Now we know we want to be able to do dynamic rules, you need to tag your entries with stuff. So for example, I'm going to have an author, I'm going to have tags, and I'm going to have an audience. These are things that I want my author to be able to tag a blog with. So that way we can start identifying, right, putting some intelligence to this blog. So we can say who the author is, what kind of tags. For example, it could be like Ford Mustang, Toyota Camry, let's say if we're writing about cars, right? An audience, it could be car lovers, it could be truck lovers, it could be Toyota lovers, for example, that kind of stuff. So if we do that, we know that we need to have an author, a tags, and an audience content type. So we'll do author, which will have a name, and that's it. That's all. We're going to keep it simple. And then we're going to do another one called tag, which will have a name. Again, we're keeping it simple. You can expand on this later. And then we'll have an audience that'll have a name. And the audience, you will assume that it's integrated into a system where you're tracking all these users. So we have these 3 content types. So now this can be a one-to-many. We're going to say, look, we need at least one author, right? So it's going to be one-to-many to author, and we're going to allow them to do a relationship type. It's going to be link only. It has to be created. Okay, we'll do that. Alrighty, so that takes care of author for an article. Now we're only tagging here. We haven't created the rules yet, but we're tagging so then the rules can use this. So for tags, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say, for tags, we're going to say, look, we need at least one tag. It'll be one-to-many, it'll be to tag. And then for audience, we're going to say the same thing. One-to-many, it has to belong to some sort of audience. There we go. Okay. So now that we have that, we have the ability to create a blog entry. We haven't worked on related yet, but we're able to create a blog entry, assign it an author, assign it some tags, and assign it some audience. That's the beginning of what the rules are going to need to be able to pull related content. Okay, and we have our author, our tag, and our audience content type. Let's make this my standard, since it's a reference, orange. There we go. Alrighty, perfect. So now let's talk about how do we then relate content. Well, we know we're going to need, we'll say related content. We're going to need a field for that, right? Where a author can go in, click on, and start relating content. Okay, so let's talk about a rule. I'm going to have a rule, or we're going to have a variety of rules that we can assign to related content. So I'm going to say rule, and we're going to give it an internal name. Then I'm going to say match, and value would be all of these, any of these, or none of these. And I'll explain what that means in just a minute. And then I'm going to say objects. I'm going to say one-to-many, got to have at least one. And what am I pointing to? Well, I'm pointing to author, audience, and tag, right? So I'm able to create a rule that says, look, for this rule, let's do this for a second. This is going to be orange, and it's going to be actually a relationship type will be link only. We don't allow people to create, or in other words, we won't allow our authors to create. Maybe admins manage the author, tag, and audience. That's more of a content governance thing. But okay, so now I can create a rule and say, look, match all of these. So I can create a rule that says, for example, let's say is a dog audience. In other words, it's part of my audience that loves dogs. Matches a terrier and a golden retriever for tags, and is written by Marcelo Lewin. So I can create one rule with multiple objects, right? Because they're pointing to here. I can create a rule that says all of that, or I can create separate rules. The match means like all of these objects must match, all of these, or any of these must match. Let's make this a little bigger so you can see better. Any of these objects must match. In other words, if it's author, great. Go ahead and show it as related, or none of these. So then how do we add this related content here? Well, what I really want to do, because remember, we're talking about dynamic content and static. Static meaning that we're going to allow authors to also add their own articles that they actually want to add, right? It's not based on some rules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another content type called related content. That one is going to have a name, internal name. It's going to have, and let's start with static content. content. It's going to be 0 to many. I'm going to make it optional because you don't have to add. And it's going to be to blog right now. That's the only content we really have. And it's going to be